Famous Legends, Book 2. Jason and the Golden Fleece. Long ago in Greece, there lived two children, a boy named Phrixus and his sister Helle. Although they were the children of a king, they were not happy. Their mother Nephele had gone away, and their father had married again. Their new stepmother, Ino, hated them and wanted to kill them. One day they were walking sadly near their home, when suddenly a huge ram appeared before them. It was no ordinary ram, for it had been sent by the gods to save them. Its fleece was of pure gold, and to their amazement it spoke to them.
"Climb upon my back,"
it said,
"and I will take you away from your cruel stepmother."
They obeyed, and the ram, which could fly, carried them over the sea. Helle lost her balance, fell, and was drowned in the sea below, which was called the Hellespont after her. Phrixus flew on safely to Colchis, which was on the other side of the Black Sea, at the eastern edge of the world. Sacrificing the ram to the gods in thanks, he gave its golden fleece to the king of Colchis, Aeetes. Aeetes hung it from a tree near his palace and set a great serpent to guard it. Many years later, Jason was born in northern Greece, the son of the king of Thessaly. Soon after he was born, his uncle Peleus took away his father's kingdom and made himself king instead. He threatened to kill his nephew, so Jason was sent away. Jason was looked after by a strange creature called Chiron. He was a centaur, half man and half horse. Jason grew into a strong young man, and at last went to King Peleus to get his father's kingdom back. Peleus had received a strange warning from the gods.
"Beware of the man with one sandal."
He did not know what this meant, until one day Jason arrived. On his way to see King Peleus, Jason had had to cross a fast-flowing river. In the middle he'd slipped, and had lost one of his sandals. When Peleus saw this, he was angry and afraid. Jason told Peleus that he had come to claim his father's kingdom, and the king grew even more afraid. But he was cunning.
"If you are to be king,"
he said, smiling,
"you must prove your bravery."
Jason answered boldly,
"I will show my bravery in any way you please."
"Then,"
said Peleus slowly,
"you must bring me the golden fleece."
Jason left the palace full of doubts and fears. How could he carry out this difficult task? Then he saw what he must do. He went to Argus, the best shipbuilder in the land, who built him a fine ship with 50 oars, named the Argo. Many brave men volunteered to go with Jason. There was Orpheus, the musician, Castor and Polydeuces, the twin sons of the god Zeus, Zetes and Calais, sons of the north wind, Heracles the strong, and the steersman Tiphys. The 50 men who sailed in the Argo were called the Argonauts. When everything was ready, the Argo sailed out of the harbor. The Argonauts looked back as they sailed eastwards across the Aegean Sea. They saw the cloud-capped peaks of Mount Olympus. Would they ever see Greece again? At last they came to the coast of Asia, which we now call Turkey. When they landed, they were met by Amycus, the king of that land. He was a gigantic, brutal man, and gave them no welcome.
"Before you leave,"
he roared,
"one of you Greeks must fight me in a boxing match. We'll see whose country produces the better men."
The challenge was accepted by Polydeuces, son of Zeus. It was a hard, cruel fight. At last, with all his strength, Polydeuces swung his fist and struck Amycus full on the side of the head. The blow was so hard that the king fell dead. The Argonauts sailed on and landed near a temple, where they met the blind priest Phineus, who told them his strange story.
"Once I was a famous prophet,"
he said.
"I had the power to see into the future, but foolishly I told men the secrets of the gods. Zeus punished me. He struck me blind and cursed me with the harpies. Whenever I sit down to eat, these monsters swoop like lightning from the sky and devour my food. What they leave is unfit to eat.
In pity, Jason offered to try to kill the harpies. The heroes lay in ambush while Phineas prepared his next meal. As he sat down to eat, there was a great flapping and screeching. The harpies, giant birds with human faces, appeared. The sons of the North Wind, Zetes and Calais, drove them away and flew in pursuit as far as Crete. But the gods would not let the heroes kill the harpies, though they did not trouble Phineas again. Phineas thanked the Argonauts for saving him and told them of the dangers ahead.
At the entrance to the Black Sea are the clashing rocks,
He said.
These rocks spring together and crush any ship that passes between them. Before you try to pass through, send a dove between the rocks. If she passes safely, so will the Argo.
The Argonauts left Phineas and sailed into the narrow channel. They saw ahead 2 towering rocks to left and to right. Jason stood on the prow of the ship and sent a dove flying ahead. As it passed between the rocks, they clashed together with a terrible grinding roar. Then they opened again, and the heroes saw that the dove had just got through. Tiphys, the helmsman, steered the Argo through the gap between the rocks. As she came out, the rocks clashed again, but the heroes were safe. So they sailed on to Colchis and came before King Aeetes in his palace. When they asked for the golden fleece, he grew angry.
First,
He said to Jason,
you must show your courage. Go to the field of Ares, the war god, where you will find 2 fire-breathing bulls. Harness these and plow the field, sowing the furrows with these dragon's teeth. Last of all, you must cut the harvest from the earth. If you do these things, you shall have the golden fleece.
Jason left the palace with his friends. They were all afraid that the trials meant certain death. But that night, Jason was helped by an unexpected friend. Aeetes' daughter, Medea, who was skilled in magic, had seen him and fallen in love with him. She met Jason secretly and gave him a jar of magic ointment.
No harm will come to you if you use this,
She said. Jason thanked Medea and made ready for his trials. He rubbed the ointment over his body, his armor, and his weapons. It made him feel stronger and braver as he walked onto the field of Ares, the war god. The 2 bulls saw him coming and charged, breathing fire. Jason seized the first one by the horns and with a mighty effort threw it to the ground. Then he seized the second bull in the same way. In their anger, the bulls breathed a tornado of fire at the hero, so that he was wrapped round in flame. But the magic ointment saved him, and he was unharmed. Jason put the harness around the bulls' necks and yoked them to the plow. Then he set off up the field, cutting a deep furrow in the earth. Into the furrow he threw the dragon's teeth that Aeetes had given him. It was evening before Jason finished sowing the dragon's teeth. Setting the bulls free again, he went back to his friends and rested. Then, taking up his weapons, he went back to the field of Ares. He was amazed at what he saw. From the furrows were springing the tips of spears, swords, and helmets. They grew into the heads and shoulders of armed men, rising from the earth. These were the earth-born men, the harvest that he must cut down. Jason crouched down, hidden behind his shield. Then he hurled a large rock into the middle of the field. At once the earth-born men sprang at it with warlike cries and began to fight each other over it. Jason drew his sword and hacked the men down. Some were cut down while still growing. At last the dreadful slaughter was over, and Jason had finished his trials. Night fell, and Jason returned to his ship. But Medea was afraid that her father would kill the hero when he came again to ask for the golden fleece. So she ran away from the palace and went to the Argo. She told Jason that she would help him to get the fleece at once, if he would take her away with him. So they entered the wood where the fleece was hanging. The serpent was awake and heard them coming. His huge head curled above Jason's head, preparing to strike. Then Medea came forward, casting poppy seed and magic powder into the creature's eyes. Orpheus played soft music on his lyre, and slowly the monster drooped his head in sleep. Reaching up swiftly, Jason took the fleece from its tree and carried it back to the ship. Before the alarm was raised, the Argonauts had set sail for Greece. The journey home was even longer and more dangerous than before. The ships of King Aeetes cut the Argo off from the clashing rocks, and so a new route had to be found. The story tells how the Argonauts sailed the length of the great river Danube, and at last found their way through to the Mediterranean Sea, west of Italy. As they came nearer home, they had to pass the island of Crete. The way was barred by Talos, the bronze giant. He stood on the cliffs and hurled rocks at passing ships until they sank. When the Argo came near, and the frightened crew saw the huge figure raising a rock to crush them, Medea went to the front of the ship. She cursed Talos, and the bronze giant fell dead into the sea. The Argonauts sailed on, and at last came home to Thessaly. Jason at once took the golden fleece to Peleus, but still his uncle would not give up the throne. When Jason told Medea, she used her magical powers again to help him. But this time, her spells were evil, for she used them to bring a cruel death to Peleus. Telling him that she could make him young again, she set him in a huge cauldron of water. Then, she boiled him alive. The people were angry, and Jason and Medea were driven out of the land. They settled in Corinth, and there Jason lived for the rest of his life. He was no longer happy, and his only joy was to sit by his dear ship Argo and dream of his adventures. As time passed, Argo gradually began to rot away. One day, as Jason sat beneath the stern, the timbers gave way and fell upon him. This was the end of the man who made one of the very first voyages of discovery, the quest for the Golden Fleece.